It is. It's on.
Okay, so then he needs to talk.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Check.
Okay, it's got him.
He's got you.
Okay.
So you want me to sit in that outside chair?
No, I got to keep you. I'm deaf on this side, so.
Okay. All right. Fantastic.
It's another camera here.
Those are little robot cameras. They're controlled from in there. It's called a pan tilt zoom, PTZ camera.
Was that you just moving that on there? Or they were?
They
Huh. Cool.
Yeah, so they're doing these cameras. That one there with the red light on.
See, it's on the monitor right now, and you can see them moving it.
Hmm.
They zoom it, pan, tilt, everything from in there.
Man, that's cool.
See them move it? Hey, John.
Yes, sir.
This Constitution that I pulled off the internet, what part of it is you said there's a typo?
Typo.
Where is that?
It's in section 23. So that last phrase, it's actually by address or remonstrance. And if you Google Tennessee Code annotated, I'll show you where it's correct.
Stop, they're ready in there.
Okay. We're ready to go wherever we are.
Go ahead, yeah, click that. And then click I agree or view code. And it should be I agree. So that's coming from, that's courts, right? Click I agree there. And then click on the Tennessee Constitution. And then and this is what I don't like. You have to expand it, and then you got to go down. So it's Article 1, and then Section 23. And so it's not like a nice, easy read like a PDF. And they do this on purpose and make it cumbersome.
Not a robot.
It's
Yeah,
good.
you guys gonna set?
Yeah,
What?
he's
And
getting
then
something
submit.
ready first.
We're going live in 30 seconds, you guys.
Live in 30
Okay.
seconds.
Live in 30.
Places.
And then you can see it's correct. And that strips us of a right to address them. That false version.
John.
Take,
can you move your
water.
Time you want in the second.
Put it on the floor.
How much time? 13.
13.
Can you start that for me? Or?
I don't know how. I don't start the countdown. Okay.
He's going to start it. There he goes.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Should be over there.
Are we streaming, guys? Are we live?
Yes.
It should be a intro, I would think.
I guess with no intro.
No intro?
No intro. We're just live.
How you doing?
Well,
Okay, the timer started.
Yeah, I
This
guess
is
that.
Dan Meredith. We're with Heartland Liberty, streaming live tonight.
We
We're
are live.
We're on Facebook,
We are on Telegram.
Telegram, Rumble.
We are on Rumble.
And we're also on our guest, John Gentry's personal. Where are we streaming on your
It's on my YouTube channel.
YouTube
Yep,
channel?
John Gentry for
Okay.
Governor of Tennessee.
This is Heartland Liberty. I'm Dan Meredith.
Scott Monroe.
And we have a great guest with us tonight, a reappearing guest, John Gentry, who is a candidate for governor of the state of Tennessee.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan. Scott.
Oh, yeah, we love having you back.
We've got an election coming up soon, November 8th.
Yeah, we're down in the last days. Advertising is shut off on social media on November 1st, so we've got a couple more days of that, and then we'll wait and see what happens in November. But my campaign has exploded over the last several weeks. People are getting out and researching the candidates, and they're seeing John Gentry is the only real option out there.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
So the campaign's going well.
Going extremely well right now. Yep.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're here. We got a lot of comments about you after you were on the show last time. A lot of people out there supporting you.
They're like, who's this guy? Oh my God, he's great. It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's like you go from unknown to like, why the heck isn't he, like mainstream and on all the news?
Yeah.
A lot of the reason for that is media does not want to tell the story about the work that I'm doing. They're largely controlled by entrenched corruption, and they don't want to put this story out there. I'm teaching the people how to take control of government, how to assert constitutionally protected rights, and how to take down corruption in government. And government doesn't want that. And having control of media, especially through the legal profession, it doesn't get out, but it's getting out grassroots support. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of people that are out there on social media, tagging me, talking about the work that I'm doing.
There was one comment made by someone in the Republican establishment that asked me online, in fact, asked why you chose not to run in the Republican primary against Bill Lee.
Well, if I could run in the primary against Lee, I would crush him. I mean, I looked at his 2018 debates, terrible. I would literally destroy Bill Lee in a debate. Why am I not on the party ticket? I announced for my last race for state senate as a Republican, and I received counsel that the GOP is not going to allow me on the ticket. Even if I meet all their rules, they're going to find a way to get me off of the ticket. So I dug into the matter myself, and I'm like, yep, they're going to take me off. I know they're going to take me off the ballot because of the work that I'm doing, standing up against corruption, not just from the Democratic Party, but in the Republican Party General Assembly that's going on down there. I'm exposing all of this. So they don't want me on the GOP ticket, and they know I would crush Lee in debate and on the primary. So under statutory law, if you're a party affiliated or on the party ticket, and the GOP disqualifies you, you cannot switch to independent. You are done. You cannot be in that election under statutory law. Why do you think they do that? Why do you think that's law? That's to keep people off the ballot. I'm smarter than these guys. Now, we look at the primary, this primary, last August, there were 2 or 3 candidates running against Bill Lee. The GOP removed all of them. And one of them, Curtis Carney, who good friend of mine, I like the guy. I'd make a better governor, but he's a good guy. And he appears to me to have removed in violation of GOP rules. He protested that in the courts, and his case was dismissed. Now, in Sumner County, we had 3 local party endorsed candidates on the Republican Party ticket running against Republican incumbents, and the GOP removed them.
What offices?
Third county commissioner.
County commissioner.
Now, at the same time, they removed 3 county commissioner candidates. They had Deanne DeWitt is on the party ticket, Republican Party ticket, running for a House seat. And she was a formerly registered Democrat in Ohio. And the GOP did not question her credentials at all. The GOP wants yes men. The R behind a name means nothing today. It is absolutely meaningless with rhinos. And in the case of Deanne DeWitt, a formerly registered Democrat on the GOP ticket. And so I'm not playing their game. I'm not going to have them kick me off the ballot. I'm going to be on the ballot in November, and there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people voting for John Gentry because I know how to get around corrupt GOP rules.
Yeah, but you know what's really interesting, John, is that under the people running independent, it's you and like 14 others.
There's eight independent candidates.
There's 8 independent candidates. Okay, I overcounted.
Call them candidates.
Whatever. Yeah, but I know there's a big long line, and none of them get any coverage. I mean, you don't. And I looked up a few of those people, and like they are seriously off the wall candidates.
Yes, they are. All the other candidates the independent candidates are like completely off the wall. I'm the only, reasonable option out there. And I mean, my work transcends party politics. It really does. The work that I'm doing is far more important than anything that the parties are proposing. I'm working about taking down corruption. Have we heard Lee or Martin or anybody even say the word corruption? They don't. And it runs rampant in our government, and everybody knows it. So
I think the assumption is that there is no corruption. I think that's what
there's no what?
There's no corruption. I think that's the assumption by the party.
The corruption rate. I'll give you a perfect example. We have a government that put in place oversight agencies, the Tennessee Board of Judicial Conduct, overseeing judges in the state. That is an express violation of the Tennessee Constitution. Judges holding expressly prohibited offices in violation of Article 6, Section 7. Gross violation of the Constitution. And that's corrupt because those judges are protecting other corrupt judges. And you got the fox watching the hen house. And then we've got the Tennessee Code Commission with 2 justices who are literally, they're making law in the Tennessee Code Commission. All Tennessee Code annotated gets put together by the Code Commission. And they have legislative authority to prepare and present bills and propose substantive change to the public acts of the General Assembly. That's making law. Right. 2 justices. Can you imagine if Chief Justice Roberts in the Supreme Court said, hey, Congress, I want you to change the substance of this law? There would be outrage in this country.
It'd be like them setting up annotating the U.S. code, right?
It's absolutely ridiculous. That's corruption that I'm talking about. There's many more examples. Mm-hmm. The legislation that goes through there, they propose 1,500 bills almost every single year. Every year, 1,500 bills. And they pass close to 900 bills every single year. The people do not lead that legislation. So what's it for? So they've got things like SLAPP bill, the strategic lawsuit against public participation. And they say, we're going to protect whistleblowers. That's not what it's about. It's about protecting people that slander and commit libel against other people. And it gives judges the power to wrongfully dismiss cases. And everybody, this is what the founders called pretended legislation. We've got Senator Hale proposing that if you make a records request, a FOIA request, and you're harassing the records custodian, then they can get a restraining order on you after they force you to go through arbitration, and you got to pay for the arbitration.
What do they define as harass?
Yeah, what is?
Well, exactly my point. It's void for vagueness. They define harassment as harassment.
Nice.
And they make it whatever they want to be. And that's to deprive transparency in government records, proposed by Senator Hale out of Sumner County. That's corrupt legislation. This was a grievance in the Declaration of Independence for giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. William Lamberth, he just changed it. It was like if you say something about another candidate and you're a candidate and it's false, it was some menial fine. I don't know, $500 or something. Well, he made it criminal. They passed it in there. If I said something bad about somebody that's false and they're another candidate, then now it's 30 days in jail, misdemeanor crime.
There goes politics.
For a civil action of tort. They're criminalizing a civil action. That's corruption to protect. Now,
doesn't it have to be malicious? Has
no, you make
lie?
a false statement. Doesn't say anything about malicious in the language, and these guys can make it whatever they want to be. Now, let's say somebody says something bad about me, right? And they're making an obvious lie, right? Well, I go sue that person. I get my case dismissed under the slap bill by a corrupt judge, and I have to pay the other side's attorney fees. I have seen it happen. There's a case, I think it's in the Tennessee Supreme Court not right now, where a gentleman was slandered. A public figure was slandered, and he sued him, and the judge dismissed it, never got to go in front of a jury. And that's also in violation of the Tennessee Constitution, Article 1, Section 19, that says that the free communication of thoughts and ideas and opinions is an invaluable right of man, and every citizen can freely speak, write, or print on any subject, being responsible for the abuse of that liberty. And in a case of libel, a jury shall determine the law and the facts. That's right out of our Constitution. The jury shall determine the law and the facts, but with that slap bill, the judge dismisses the case and it never gets to a jury. It is repugnant to the Tennessee Constitution. This is the kind of corruption. There are hundreds of bills, and the fact that they got 900 of them, it's all for little special interest things.
Sure.
Somebody to make more money, to somebody to make more power, and there is nobody. We look at Governor Lee. He either signs it or he doesn't state in writing why he won't. He's not exercising veto power over this, not a single time.
Yeah.
I will wear out my veto stamp in there. I will do it so many times, it's going to backlog them in the General Assembly, because those 900 bills, I'm going to veto probably 90% of them. And so that's like 800 times they're going to have to go back and override my veto. I'm going to shut them down. I'm going to shut this corruption down in this state if the people put me in office.
Yeah. We've got 46 seconds before we have to take a break here. When we come back, I want to look at this Section 19 you mentioned. You mentioned when you were here the last time that the Tennessee Constitution is, what did Thomas Jefferson say about
it's the least imperfect and the most Republican.
Okay. I want to look back at this Section 19 that you mentioned. It's a fascinating part about the Constitution of Tennessee that talks about the freedom we have to speak and to think. And it's even, as I think you said before, even more strongly communicated than the U.S. Constitution.
Far better.
We'll be right back. I'm Dan Meredith, Scott Monroe, John Gentry with Heartland Liberty. We'll be right back.
Television, so it'll be back on in a minute.
Okay, and we're back. I'm Dan Meredith. This is Heartland Liberty with my partner here, Scott Monroe, and we have our great guest that is a somewhat of a constitutional scholar and a candidate for governor in the state of Tennessee, and the election's coming up on November 8th.
November 8th, and people are out there early voting. I'm getting messages throughout the day, just voted for you, voted for you. Great. You got my vote today.
When is early voting over? Because I keep forgetting to go every day.
Yeah, it's going. I think it runs from October 21st, I think, through November 3rd.
Okay.
And then
I got to get out there.
I don't know the exact dates on that.
Okay.
It may be different between counties.
Let's look at my computer here. Section 19, this is Article 1, right? Look, the printing press shall be free to every person to examine the proceedings of the legislature or of any branch or officer of the government, and no law shall ever be made to restrain the right
and let's talk
thereof.
about that one right there. It says that the printing press shall be free to every person to examine the proceedings
I'll leave it up.
of any branch, or any officer. And yet we have judicial conferences, secret judicial conferences, that they do not allow even the press. I was at a judicial conference down in Williamson County, and they literally strapped a reporter, member of the press, the police strapped him to a gurney and wheeled him out.
Wow.
And they would not let the press report on a judicial conference. And now what the judiciary has done is they put out there that, we're going to keep our meetings secret so you don't even know about them. And anybody judge that puts out the word is going to get in trouble. We're going to have secret meetings.
Well, how does that jive with this?
It's in gross violation of Article 1, Section 19.
And so how do we, as the people, go and challenge this constitutionally? They have a meeting that's in secret. How do we go do that?
We talked about it last time. It's through a remonstrance. But right now, our corrupt legislature won't hear remonstrances. Yeah. So there's two ways that we're going to fix this. The people are going to have to get off their can and start standing up. Because if you don't, if you allow it, if you continue in this apathetic attitude, you can just expect more of the same corruption.
So we've got a lot of representatives that are going up to Nashville, where we are now, going up to the Hill in Nashville, that don't give a crap about this stuff.
Absolutely.
They're doing things right now that are unconstitutional, illegal, and the apathetic people are just sitting back saying,
I'm helpless.
Who cares?
And so what I'm trying to do is to teach the people how to stand up. So when I'm gone, you don't need me anymore. I'm trying to show you.
And that's part of
I'm
what
trying to show you how to do
also.
it. Now, if the people put me in office, I am literally going to do this. I am going to go buy a chain and a padlock, and I'm going to lock the doors to the legislative houses. I am literally going to do it. And I'm going to station state troopers in front of the door to the House floor and the Senate floor and say no legislators may cross this threshold until they restore the form of government in our Tennessee Constitution. I guarantee I'll do it.
Wow.
Well, you might do that, but how are they going to come back at you? I mean, won't they just start?
Fight me in court and let me do it in front of the Tennessee Supreme Court? I dare them. Yeah. I know how to represent myself in a court of law. I know how to argue in defense of the Constitution, and I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, what are they going to do? They're going to go to a court and get a restraining order against me. Now I got a court hearing, and I'm going to bring the press in there, and the people are going to hear my arguments and their arguments, and the people are going to know, and I'm not going to leave them any choice but to follow the law.
Wow. Let's look at this next section in Section 19. Look here what this says. And I think this is better than the federal Constitution.
It's far better than the federal Constitution.
The free communication of thoughts and opinions is one of the invaluable rights of man, and every citizen may freely speak, write, and print on any subject, being responsible for the abuse of that liberty. But in the prosecutions of the publication of papers investigating the official conduct of officers or men in public capacity, the truth thereof may be given in evidence, and in all indictments for libel, the jury shall have a right to determine the law and the facts.
Yep.
So that's just amazing. The free communication of thoughts and opinions is one of the invaluable rights of man, and every citizen may speak, write, and print on any subject.
Now some important parts out of there. So when you're investigating the official conduct of officers, you can give evidence with that and present that out there along with this free expression of thoughts and opinions. Now, in the case of libel, the jury determines not just the facts, the jury determines the law. That is profound in our Constitution because they know what went on with the British ministry. And that's why they put that in there, because they knew when public officials are in there, they get the judge to determine the law, right? And then they prosecute however they want to, take them out to the gallows and hang them. That's what happened back in the 1800s or late 1700s. That's how they handled it back then. And that's how judges preserved power for the British ministry. But our founders were wise, and they said the jury is going to determine the law and the facts. That is profoundly protective.
So if a jury tries to actually make a determination of facts, now is that in everything or just this specific?
No, just in the publication of papers investigating the official conduct of public officials.
So,
and when they're saying determine the law, it's not that they're making law, but they can look at it and say, because they can, if you look at the law that's out there right now, they can make it whatever they want to be. It's written so vague. If they want to prosecute you, they can. But the jury gets to determine what that law says.
But the jury has to hear what the prosecutors are saying that law is.
Right.
And so there's the confusion because they'll give the jury instructions to listen to what the prosecutor says, correct?
Right. But the opposing counsel gets to state, and this is what I do with all of it, and this is why they don't mess with me in court. I just challenge the constitutionality of the statute. And once the constitutionality of the statute is challenged, you can't prosecute until you first decide whether it's constitutional or not. And I'll take that, and they know I will, to the Tennessee Supreme Court and to the Supreme Court of the United States. That's why they don't mess with me in court. I dare them. I talk bad about these guys all the time. And I said, come after me for libel or slander. I dare you. I said it on last show. Senator Stevens, he's corrupt. I do it all the time.
Yeah, they didn't come after you for that.
No, they don't come after me.
Maybe they'll come after us, Dan.
What do you think?
I don't know. We're over here. We complain about them all the time, and we bring on John.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think
where does freedom of the press come in here?
Again, I go back to, I guess it's not there unless we insist that it's there. We have to step up.
People have to start stepping up.
Right.
And stop. What it is the people are in a coma of apathy, ignorance, and distraction. That's what it is. It ain't hurting me, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
They call that bread and circuses, right?
Yes, it's exactly what it is.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What my work is about is teaching people it's not a lot of trouble to sign a remonstrance and file it with the General Assembly. It's not a lot of trouble that, you got a corrupt one like Cameron Sexton. And so nobody's running against him on the Republican Party ticket. Fine. We don't care. We're going to vote the Democrat because we don't want this corrupt Republican in there that's oppressing the right of remonstrance. And when people start stepping up like that, because it don't matter in Tennessee whether you vote Democrat or Republican, all that corrupt legislation passes through a Republican Party trifecta. It doesn't matter. It is one party in that General Assembly. It is the party of corruption. And the only thing where they draw lines is on something like abortion or gun rights. That is the only place. And those lines are very thin because the language that they do come up with is still so vague they can do whatever they want in any case anyway.
It's Melba toast on most of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just that's no flavor and no substance. It just is language that they then may claim to we the people that we did this. And good example, constitutional carry, which does not exist in the state of Tennessee.
They just call it constitutional
but
carry.
they call it constitutional carry.
It's a scam. That constitutional carry will deceive citizens to carry when they can't.
Right.
And it's going to get them in trouble.
Right.
It is a total scam.
Right.
And this is another thing that they do, is they legislate to create torts. They legislate to create criminal conduct so people have to hire attorneys. And that's one of the biggest reasons for corrupt legislation in there is so that people have to go out and hire an attorney and pay them $300 an hour.
Yeah.
Now, what I do with this, and here's John Gentry's solution for this. I know I'm an accountant, been a CPA for 20 years. My specialty is forensic accounting. I am like a hound dog sniffing out fraud. And I apply the same methods in looking at the fraud in pretended legislation. I can look at it and say, oh, I see what they're trying to do here. I know why this is corrupt, and I'm not going to let it happen. I veto it. I send it in writing back to the General Assembly. I'm going to force them to come override my veto. But I'm going to sit down just like I'm doing right here. And I'm going to say, here's all the little tricky language. I'm going to break it down for the people out there, put it in layman's terms, and say, here's why it's corrupt. And I want all of you to do your part and call your senator, call your representative, and tell them don't override Governor Gentry's veto. And I will shut down their corrupt legislation to the power inherent in the people, telling them to exercise their right to instruct their representatives, not to pass that legislation, not to override my veto. They aren't going to get their little tricky garbage legislation through John Gentry's office. It ain't going to happen. 900 pieces of legislation. If I got to work nights and weekends to pick through all of it, if I got to go hire some law students and some CPAs to help me with the workload, I'm going to expose the fraud in every piece of legislation.
Tell me what you know about the National Governors Association. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
No, I have not. I'm familiar with national legislative associations, and I can talk to those from that perspective.
We had a guest, Mark Herr, who's the head of the Center for Self-Governance. He came and he told us about the history of the United States and that there's a group called the National Governors Association that all governors are part of. And he says that this group pretty much pulls the strings of every governor in America. And are we going to do another? We're going to do another half hour. Okay.
Yeah.
When we come back, I want to talk to you about the National Governors Association. We got 15 seconds, so
you can give us a review of what Dan's talking about and see
what
you think about it.
We'll review this when we come back. Tell you about this because it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. Mark Herr reviewed us on it. We'll be back in just a few seconds. I'm Dan Meredith,
Scott Monroe,
and John Gentry, and this is Heartland Liberty live streaming. Thanks for being with us.
Seven, six.
Hi there. Welcome back to, I see, Be Right Back. Are we going to
Be right
change that?
back. Hello.
Hi there.
There's
There
the
we
feed.
are.
There we are.
Hi. We're back. We're really back now. This is Dan Meredith.
That's Scott Monroe. We got John Gentry. And we
Candidate.
apparently have a question.
Yeah, we have a question. That's one of the
From
great
the
things
audiences.
that we're trying to encourage with our live stream. We have a question from the audience, and the question is, what does John know about some judge in Tennessee that is prosecuting children, I think, young people, using fake laws? What do you know about that?
There's a Judge Davenport, I believe it was out of the Memphis area. She was, for 10 years, she has been incarcerating children, some of them not even accused of committing any crime. Just kids that come in for, she'd send them to jail, send them to juvenile jail. And the state just settled something like $300,000. Now, here's the problem. If I was governor, I would propose articles of impeachment, because judges have, the so-called absolute immunity. You can't sue them for anything that they do while they're in office until you remove their immunity and have them impeached. So the first step to removing their immunity is impeaching them. But Tennessee and our corrupt legislature will not impeach judges, because the corrupt judiciary is very obviously in control of our corrupt legislature. Now, Governor Lee, he said, oh, well, that should be decided by the Board of Judicial Conduct. But the Board of Judicial Conduct has judges overseeing judges, and those judges holding expressly prohibited offices in violation of the Constitution. And this is why we have so much problem, is like, how can you challenge legislation that's repugnant to the Constitution is you go to court, right? You ask me, like, what do the people do when they see this? You're supposed to be able to go to court.
Right.
Well, you go to court and the cases get dismissed because the judiciary is corrupt and they can do whatever they want because the House isn't overseeing them with impeachment proceedings. And so now you've got, effectively one branch of government, the legislature, breaking down rampant corruption going on in the courts. And the heart of the problem is judges holding prohibited offices. Now, Governor Lee, he appointed a former member of the Board of Judicial Conduct to his cabinet. He could not have picked a more corrupt person for his cabinet, who is also an appellate court judge protecting all of the corrupt trial court proceedings. He couldn't have picked a worse, more corrupt person. And it's a top cabinet position, COO, Chief Operating Officer. And with her description of her duties undefined, while the others are.
Why would you pick someone like that?
With Judge Davenport, you know what happened? You know what happened with Judge Davenport? She resigned, and that's it. She resigned, and nothing happened.
So no penalties for all of the wrongdoing that she
No
done.
penalties whatsoever.
So kids' lives were ruined.
Ruined children's lives, and nothing happened to her, and it happens every day in this state. And there is nobody in this entire country that has the courage to stand up to the judiciary except for John Gentry. I mean, President Trump, at a Nashville rally, he said, I can't talk bad about judges. Trump said that. He calls Senator Warren Pocahontas. He calls Kim Il, foreign North Korea leader, calls him Rocket Man. But he can't talk bad about judges. I talk bad about judges every day. We have an incredible amount of corrupt judges here in the state, top to bottom, as well as our federal courts. They are so into everything, and you have to be an attorney to understand the corruption in the courts. I'm not, but I taught myself. The Sixth Circuit said my legal work would stand up against any attorney anywhere, anytime. That's the Sixth Circuit, just below the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah.
So there isn't anybody. Trump's not an attorney, so he can't understand the corruption and pick it apart the way that I can. And I'm an expert at it. I am the top legal expert in this country.
You know the law
on judicial corruption.
Right, you know the law. Now, isn't it true, though, most of these attorneys, they know procedure. They learn procedure. They learn how to do paperwork, but they don't really learn the law.
Well, they learn the statutory law.
They learn statutory law.
But they don't know. The Tennessee Constitution is not taught in any law school. at all.
Yeah.
I've looked at the curriculums all around Tennessee. Tennessee Constitution is not taught.
I
Is there
believe it.
anything in the Tennessee bar that they have to pass that has Tennessee
Nothing
Constitution?
on the Tennessee Constitution.
Oh my gosh.
They do not want to know the Tennessee Constitution because that Constitution is our shield and our armor and our sword. And they don't want us to know about it. That's the heart of my work, is to teach this Constitution, to teach the people how to defend themselves.
Right. Let's go back to, we mentioned before the break, the National Governors Association.
Oh, yeah.
We talked to Mark Herr, and he was telling us that this was something that had the roots back after the war between the states, and the United States changed. And there's sort of a force that operates, that runs the states. This National Governors Association, he told us about that this association sort of operates as sort of like a governing body throughout the United States. And all governors go to this. And when they meet together, they're told, here's what you're going to do. And that there's really not much choice. Governors are told, here's what you're going to do. And, he pointed out that when all this stuff about masks and all this stuff came out, why did all the governors just comply? Because the NGA told all the governors, here's what you're going to do. There wasn't a lot of difference anywhere. Because
Is that similar to the legislative associations you're talking about?
I can tell you the difference with John Gentry. Nobody controls me. I cannot be bought, I cannot be intimidated, and I won't be silenced.
So you wouldn't be a member. You wouldn't be a member of the National Government. You'd just not join them.
I'm not going.
I asked him, what happens? Somebody joins, and he says, well, what happens is that when Governor Gentry comes in, the staff says, well, next week your appointment is in wherever, Nebraska. It's the NGA. Here's your tickets. Here's your reservations. You go, because all governors go to this, and that the governors just go, and
nobody,
they just do what they're told.
Nobody steers John Gentry, and that's what they don't like about me. When I walk into a courtroom now, judges straighten up. Every judge in the state knows who I am because I want to reform all of them, and they don't like it.
Yeah.
Same thing, with this other nonsense that's going on in the legislature. They can't control me. They cannot control me, and I know the law. And I know the courtroom process, and I know how to fight. And on top of that, I have a lot of people in the state of Tennessee that are backing me up right now. And there is no power greater than the power of the people. Mm-hmm. That public opinion, the people understand what I'm doing out there, and they stand behind me. People tell me all the time, I got your six. You need security, we got a team. The people stand behind me, and these guys cannot control me. They can't.
Let me bring this up then. Election law and elections, because there is where a lot of what happens is controlled.
From the live
making sure that certain people might be selected and not elected. So even if, from an election perspective, what would be the prospects that they'd cheat?
Even if I don't know if they're going to cheat. My guess is, you can't really change the software. I don't think.
There's other ways to cheat other than software.
That has to be done, before and I think they've way underestimated John Gentry. And I don't think they ever would have thought that they would need to change software programming to fend off an independent candidate. But I think they're probably thinking, maybe we should have by now, because my support has swelled tremendously over the last several weeks in here. But even if there is, I don't care. If they cheat, I don't care.
Well, let me give you an example.
My work is going to get done one way, as soon as I get enough reach. And enough people know about my work, it isn't going to matter if I'm in office.
Right.
I'm going to get the same thing done through exercising constitutional rights. I have no desire for office. I really do not. I do not care to be governor. I'm stepping up out of sense of duty. And if the people elect me, I will perform that job to the best of my ability. But I don't care. And if there is election fraud, I don't care. I'm still going to get this work done by educating the people and empowering the people.
Yeah, well, I guess my biggest question is, So if you got in, would you try real hard to get rid of machines and go to paper ballots?
Absolutely. I said before, I guarantee term limits. And under the same process, I guarantee paper ballots.
Okay.
With election integrity, you cannot guarantee election integrity unless you can audit it. And I started out
Oh,
as
you
I
can't
started
audit it
out
right
as
now.
an auditor. You cannot ensure financial statement integrity unless you audit it, right? You cannot audit ones and zeros on an electronic disk.
Right. Yeah.
It is impossible to audit that.
We've talked about that before. This
And
is
so-
a black box, and you don't know what's in that black
Right.
box.
So we have to get back to paper ballots. And what I want to do with that is every ballot has a control number that is assigned to a registered voter after we clean up the rolls.
Right.
But you go in there, you show your ID and they'll pick out your card that has your control number on it. It will be hand marked. No hanging ballots. You're going to fill in an oval. Those are going to get OCR machine read. They're also going to be hand counted at the precincts, especially in any close races. It will be mandatory counting of those ballots, and then also sample testing against the machine counts. It will be impossible to test. On top of that, as the machine is scanning, it's going to save an electronic image that anybody can scroll through, a continuous image of all the cards and count them one by one. Yeah. And that will be stored in the cloud, available to every citizen. And you can go find your control number through a bookmark and say, yep, that's my card.
Yeah.
Well, I just went to we have to go. Okay, I was just going to say, I just went to a meeting today in Davidson County. The election commission machine tech people were doing their machine integrity checks today, and I went, and it was open for the November 8th election. So I went in there, and they had all their testing stuff on top of every machine, and their tabulators and everything, and it was all set up. And so we just asked them they said, see how it works. Now the fact is, these guys are okay, right? They're the tech people. They're doing what they're told to do and what they expect. But there's questions like, well, what's about the logging? Oh, we turn on the logging. Well, then why can't I get certain kinds of information? Well, you can't get information because you might find out how somebody voted. I'm like, but without that information, I can't replay the election. I can't get any analysis.
10 seconds.
And the simple answer is that is a control number with each person.
Right. Well, this is their problem. They start matching up. Anyway, we're going to come back in a second.
We'll be back in just a second. Stay tuned. Hi there. Welcome back to, who put that there? Welcome back to Heartland Liberty. We are here again, live streaming to Rumble, Facebook, where else?
Telegram.
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 I think John Gentry's Google
Yes,
page.
on my
Yep.
YouTube,
Yep.
YouTube channel.
YouTube page.
And several different places. This is live streaming, and we appreciate you being here listening to Heartland Liberty. I'm Dan Meredith, Scott Monroe, and we have our special guest here, John Gentry, who is a candidate for governor of Tennessee.
And he's on fire. On
Yes,
fire.
he is. So we've got a couple of questions that people have sent in. What about raising the limits for people to get help who are on disability?
This comes under federal law and Medicare, that when you've got a child aging out that's on disability. So maybe you have a child that has severe Down syndrome who can't care for themselves. And once they hit, I think, 21 or 22 years old, they're cut off and they don't receive any disability after that or have disability insurance. I mean, it cuts their health insurance off once they come of age, even though they still can't. That's a big gap. And, we've got here in Tennessee, I think we had a $23 million budget surplus this year. I think we can there are so few cases, I think, that we can provide health insurance to some of these disabled out there. It's just we've got to cut the pork spending. We've got to cut the corrupt spending. They just put in, I don't remember the dollar amount. I think it was like $1 million or $2 million or something for 1,500 CASA attorneys.
Wow.
Those are child advocate, special advocate attorneys that basically are extorting parents to protect their children. And so, stuff like that, it's got to go. They spend $1 million on studying courthouse security. The best thing for courthouse security, stop being corrupt and start providing justice, and you won't need guards out there to keep you from getting shot.
Yeah.
Not having vigilante justice, the best way to not have vigilante justice is to be fair. And then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But they waste money on stuff like that. And there's a lot of it. And I think, just the fact with the budget surplus, I don't think that there's a lot of disabled children that are aging out on health insurance. I think it's a gap that the state could fill on top of the federal benefit.
There was this other question that came in about trying to protect people from the state forcing guardianship onto people. Either, I guess, that would be at children with CPS or older adults, probably through like attorney guardianship issues.
So what they're doing now, and I'll just give an example of how far they're taking this now. In Kentucky, they have a wellness check for fourth graders. This is going on right now, a wellness check. So they got their laptop computer sitting in front of them and says, how do you feel today? Are you happy? Are you angry? Are you sad? Oh, you're a little angry. Is everything okay at home? And they use these as a way to get in, to maybe a kid had a bad morning and he's mad at mom and dad. And now they got CPS investigating this family, and they go in with false and unsupported allegations, and they take those children into state custody. Now, the reason they do that, Tennessee makes about $60 million in Title IV money that comes out of our Social Security fund. This is why Social Security is depleted, is because it's being used to pay for foster care taken from parents, put it there based on false and unsupported allegations. Their own reports show that only 11% are abuse. So 89% are neglect or other reasons in there. They do the same thing with adults. So an adult goes in, they got a bed sore. Oh, you can't care for yourself anymore. We're going to appoint an attorney to take care of you. That attorney starts selling off assets and starts taking a cut, and they use it to pay nursing homes. Meanwhile, the children are like, I want to take care of them. And there's like, no. And so you have children, middle-aged children, that are fighting for their elderly parents against the state to care for their own parent because they get the same thing, Title IV money. from the federal government. All of this corruption is literally tearing at the fabric of our nation. You know, these guardianships, guardian ad litems, it needs to stop. It was aggrieved in our Declaration of Independence. He sends out swarms of officers
Yes.
to harass our people and eat out our substance. This is exactly the same thing that's happening with CASA attorneys, guardian ad litems, CPS. There are swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. It is a declared act of tyranny. And there is nobody that has the courage to stand up to it except for me running for high office.
And there's an assumption we've talked about before that the state knows better and cares more for our families than we do. They care more for our children. They care more for our elderly parents. They care more for everyone than we do.
Well,
and we should trust them more than we
This
trust
is an
us.
obvious lie, because you go complain about a corrupt judge that's violating your rights and they won't do a single thing. They don't care about the people,
Right.
not in the least. They give the illusion of it, but they don't care. What they want is that Title IV money.
Right.
What
They
they
want the
want
money.
is force you to hire an attorney to defend yourself. Now, you know, when these kids get taken, the family that's being attacked, they go to their extended family. And so these guys are literally pillaging generations of family to try to protect against, you know, and get their kids back from CPS, or to get their elderly out of state custody, out of a nursing home, and bring them into their home. Happens every day, and it's all about money. Now, when we look at, and here's another reason that they don't care. In the foster care system, kids age out, they have no life skills, none whatsoever. A large percentage of them. Many of them end up homeless coming out of the foster care system. They don't go to college. They don't earn a trade. A lot of them just end up homeless. Now, I don't remember the legal doctrine, but it's basically assuming the role of a parent.
Yeah, in loco parentis.
In loco parentis, right? Thank you.
I did go to school that day in college.
Okay, thank you for
that's
that.
the one
In
day I
loco
made.
parentis.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the one that I'm talking about. Okay, so if you want to play parent, you're going to take a kid into child custody, send them to college, send them to trade school, and they don't do it. So they're not assuming the parental role. They're putting them on the streets when they're done, rather than sending them to college.
Just because the money rolled out when they became 18.
Exactly. So, you know, if what I want to make it is, if you're going to take a kid into custody, then you need to assume the parental role and make sure that that child earns a trade or goes to college. And if you don't want to start doing that, you don't need to take them in the first place. You're an unfit parent.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
Totally
Yeah.
agreed.
That's right. I never thought about that, but that's true. The in loco parentis, taking the place of the parent, what they want to do is just take that one little part of being a parent and just take the child and do this one little piece. But they don't want to take full responsibility. They just want to take that child away from you.
They fail.
And not take the total responsibility.
They fail.
Right,
they fail in parental responsibility.
Did we cover this?
I think we covered those.
Okay.
I mean, he can answer the question about public smoking.
Yeah. What are your feelings about smoking, public smoking, and the government role in
forcing people
smoking, right to smoke, right not to smoke, right of the government to involve themselves in that?
Well, our Constitution says that they cannot invade our liberties or our privileges except by the law of the land. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's constitutional if the General Assembly wants to make law that infringes on certain liberties. They can make that law, and that is constitutional, that they can do that. And the solution is put the people in office. Yeah. And you know,
of course, there's certain things that the government can't make laws. You know, they can't. We saw that they can't make laws against freedom of speech. They can't make laws, but of course, there's no right to smoke. So I guess
Yeah, they have that authority
yeah,
over
I
something
guess
like that.
it's one of those things where I'm not a smoker. I don't like being around it, but I guess the government can make that law. I just, as more of a Christian, conservative, libertarian, the government can make those laws, but I just sort of wish they'd stay out of it. Let people do what they want to.
Small issue for me.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
what I'm talking about here,
He's got big fish to fry.
Yeah.
you know, what I'm talking about here is restoring the form of government. You know, if you look at that preamble, it says, you know, the delegates have ratified or established this Constitution for the people to ratify this Constitution and form of government. That Constitution establishes our form of government. And we all know executive branch, legislative branch, two houses, judicial branch. But there's things in there like no judge shall hold any other office of trust. That's part of our form of government. And it's grossly violated. It's an unlawful alteration. And that too was a grievance in the Declaration of Independence for altering fundamentally our forms of government.
Right.
You know, so you know when I'm as a businessman, like when I first get into a new business, first thing I do, let's get the basics covered here. You know, let's make sure that we have product to sell and that we're selling that product and we're collecting money. I mean, I get down to like very basics when I look at a business.
And the government's not doing that.
And then I start getting into, you know, making sure employees are getting paid right, not too much, not too little. Make sure all the basics are covered in business. This is the basics of government is what's in that Constitution. And those fundamentals grossly violated by government, like secret judicial meetings, judges holding prohibited offices, this is the breakdown.
Right.
This is the breakdown
and those are
of the
kind
process.
of things that we as the people need to be concerned about. You as a candidate for governor, and hopefully if you are elected as a governor, and the current governor and the current legislature should be concerned about. But they seem to be concerned about crazy things that aren't the basics.
Yeah, we've got, you know, here we are building stadiums, right?
Yeah.
And we've got problems with infrastructure on roads, right?
Yeah.
And why they want to do that. So here in Tennessee, they want to put up a new Titan Stadium and put a dome on top of it. They want to bring the Super Bowl in here, and they want tourists to come because of the sales tax.
Right.
And so they want sales tax money is what they want.
10 seconds.
We've already got a $20 million surplus. What do they want more money for?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's always for corrupt purpose.
Right.
Quit trying to find ways to make more money and start getting the basics down and taking care of the people and taking care of our infrastructure.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
we got to get going, John. I
Good way
appreciate
to
you
end.
coming here. This is awesome again, one more time. And hey, folks, take a look at John. Look at his stuff online.
Webpage. Where's your webpage?
Oh, yeah, webpage.
If you just Google John Gentry for governor, you'll find me out there. But my website's We the People, V as in Victor, 50.com.
We the People, V50.com. Thanks for watching. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Scott here, being at my side all the time. And appreciate our crew in the control room, out here on the floor, and everybody here that helps make Heartland Liberty be what it is. Thank you.
We'll see you again.
See you again. Oh, stop. Does that mean stop? What does this mean? I thought that mean keep going. See you
We're
next time.
dancing in here.
See you next time.
guess.
Cut
All
it
right,
off.